Welcome back. You're watching The Globe. Lesotho has convened Parliament for a week to pass two bills into law. The announcement made by King Letsie III is aimed at ending the state of emergency that was declared by Prime Minister Moeketsi Majoro last week. Lesotho enacted a state of emergency, which is in place until August the 29th. This after lawmakers failed to pass bills to amend the Constitution and the National Assembly Electoral Act. Both laws seek to end political volatility in the Parliament ahead of the October general elections. According to the country's constitution, Parliament must be dissolved 90 days prior to national elections. Well, for a little bit more on this, we're now joined by our correspondent in Lesotho, Rapelang Radebe. Rapelang, thanks very much indeed for joining us. This has been quite a story. I remember the struggle to try and get these bills passed that fateful midnight, and clearly they didn't cross the line. Has it ever happened, though, that Parliament has been recalled in the manner that it's being recalled now?
Yeah, as I had alluded earlier on, that it is actually going to be a very dramatic. I think, to the best of my knowledge, the Parliament has never been recalled, especially for the purpose of coming to complete a bill that fell because of the duration, to come and complete an assignment which they did not do. It's a first.
So what are citizens making of all of this? MPs being recalled because they couldn't get the job done the first time?
It has brought mixed feelings, I must tell you, with some very stern. Even today, the sitting of the Parliament was quite a hot one. Some members demanding that there are still people like the Prime Minister was not in Parliament today, the Deputy Prime Minister, and some were furious that we are called back to come and complete the task. But it looks like some of you guys, especially, are still not taking it seriously. So the nation is equally divided, because some said, I think, come what may, these bills needs to be passed. But actually, one has challenged this procedure in court, saying these people had all the time, they abused all the time, and then in the last minute, they want to now bypass the Constitution by extending unfairly the life of the Parliament. They said it's unfair.
So what is Parliament hoping to do, and can they get it done if they couldn't get it done before?
I foresee a bit of a dilemma. His Majesty has actually reconvened the Parliament. It sat yesterday and continued today, but the court challenge actually had said they are, I want to use the right word, they are a bit perplexed as to why the Parliament is still sitting when there is a court case that is challenging its legitimacy. So it was the second day today, there were deliberations, and I'm told that the judgment has been reserved until next week's Tuesday. So it looks like there is still a hung situation of whereby if the court is convinced that the Constitution has been bypassed by recalling, by wrongly advising His Majesty to reopen the Parliament, there might be consequences. But at the same time, the interpretation of the Constitution as to what it means when it says when there is a situation that warrants an emergency that can recall, because it stipulates clearly that it has to be war or something that is of a threatening nature to the existence or to the peace of the kingdom. Now, that interpretation is what is going to need to be deliberated from the court and interpreted accordingly.
Was there no other alternative, any other way to resolve this?
Absolutely none. The Constitution is quite clear that the life of the Parliament is 5 years, and it falls on that particular midnight where you and I were waiting to see. But it also left an opening, because understanding that the Constitution cannot just be black and white. There could be a situation that may warrant, and one of them, of the situation specifically says it is when there is a war or a situation, an emergency that threatens the existence of the country. His Majesty may be advised by the State Council to reconvene Parliament on cases of emergency. Now, whether this was not a calamity that was self-created and then now bypassing the Constitution to recall the Parliament is probably what will be now argued, and we wait whether Tuesday will bring a different outcome. But others would say, would you rather have an emergency, wait for it to unfold, because failure to pass these bills would have consequences, direct consequences, probably even worse than the war itself.
So the courts are still to decide. In the meantime, what happens if Parliament comes to some kind of decision? Does that then become null and void if the cases the courts decide that they were never able to recall Parliament in this way?
It's a bit of a cat and mouse situation, right now, because look, these are two independent bodies. The Parliament is sovereign, it's independent, and we are talking about the judiciary, which is equally independent. But there is that fine line that once there is a challenge to the status quo that has been taken to court, there has to be an accommodation for the court to interpret the law accordingly. Whether the information did not go, or because remember, it's almost 3 days now out of a week that has not been utilized properly, because I think they were trying to avoid a situation where somebody would probably challenge that particular constitution. So we are trying to get the clarification from the Parliament itself as to whether are they aware of the existing challenge and litigation, and what is their response if the Parliament is just proceeding as normal.
I'm just remembering again to that last conversation, and we were chatting literally to the last few minutes before midnight. It seemed as if they had pretty much agreed, and it was a question of going through readings and that kind of thing. Surely it shouldn't be taking long to solve this problem. It should have been quite quick.
Yeah, but remember, Lesotho can sometimes be quite interesting when it comes to matters like this. It could have been a deliberate effort from some quarters that somehow they tackle the ball, it does not ultimately end up in the net. But now, if, yes, the procedure is now legitimate and they continue, there is still also a bit of a fear that there are others who were questioning that some of the clauses had been removed, and they would challenge that if you are giving an opportunity to recall Parliament, they might as well reconsider that holistically, what was considered the views of Lesotho. I know the media sector was already complaining that some of the key critical clauses had been removed and other quotas. So it might open up another can of worms for somebody saying, if the Parliament has been recalled and it has been granted, you might as well deal with the bill, omnibus bill, in its totality. Because remember, there are 7 thematic themes in that bill, and some of them they were complaining that they had sifted and shifted and taken out some of the things, probably saying to their own convenience.
All right, Rapelang, if you can answer this quickly because we've run out of time. Are the elections in jeopardy at this time?
Ooh, $1 million question. That court decision on Monday, we hope and we pray that it will leave the status quo as it is and that they complete the bills. But I think it would be a tragedy if these 2 key bills, the omnibus bill, does not go through. It would be a shame to SADC, it would be a shame to the rest of the world. And I think it will leave an egg on the face of those who were trusted to complete these bills. But at the same time, it is the Constitution that needs to be respected. If it is challenged and it decides otherwise, I believe it must be respected.
Rapelang, always great talking to you, getting updates there from Lesotho. Thanks so much indeed.
Kelawanda.